Hello guys, we welcome you back at Web Promo SEO Day conference. And our next speaker is Miles Scudamore from Promodo, who will tell us the story how a hacked site can kill your traffic. Miles, you have the floor.
Hi there, everyone, and thank you very much for attending today. What I want to do is certainly have a conversation about something a little bit different in regards to how a hacked website can actually kill your traffic. It's a very different topic itself, and what I'll do is I'm just going to quickly share the details with you. And the reason why I wanted to do this topic is we seem to be seeing a lot more sort of security issues these days with customers' sites. And the best way to actually explain this and show you some of the details is actually going for a real-world scenario and actually use one of our customers as a template and a base to give you some information and pass on. With this, what we'll find out is a little bit of information on how we resolved the problems and made the customer aware of this, but also some recommendations that you may want to put in place yourself. Some simple, but also, of course, some areas you may have forgotten about completely altogether. Now, thank you very much for the introduction, but there is some people out there who may not know who Promodo are. And as mentioned, my name is Miles from the UK office itself. And what we are actually a global digital marketing company. And what we like to cover is also all options of search engine optimization services, strategic planning, pay-per-click solutions, as well as social media support as well. And we're very fortunate to say that we've got a very passionate team within Promodo, and we like to work with all different types of campaigns, from small businesses through all the way through to corporate and also enterprise level campaigns around the globe. What I did want to do is actually just go into some details about, first of all, who our customer was, without naming any names, of course. And the first thing we would do is this company was actually based in UAE. And this wasn't a startup business. This wasn't something that a company had started up just a couple of years ago. This is actually a business that was actually established in 1998 and actually had a website very well established over a number of years selling e-commerce products. These products were actually high-end electrical goods, but also some very, very high-end gadget products. So they were very, very popular in the UAE and also around the globe as well. Now, as you can see from some of the indicators here, they currently had a page rank of 3, for example, but between their social media, they also had some very good indicators. They actually had followers combined of over 350,000, which was actually a very useful database for them to use. Also, looking at their backlinks and referral domains, you can actually have a very good idea that this wasn't just a small business that we were dealing with at the time. Now, when the customer came to actually approach us, we could actually see some of their traffic. And what happened was, when they actually shared this data with us, one of the major concerns they came to us was, over the years, they've not really had any considerable growth at all. But when in September, for example, as you can see in the graph here, suddenly traffic started to actually dive quite quickly. Now, this got to the point where it was almost grinding to a halt completely. And you can actually see where the traffic started to build back up again, where we actually were working with the client and advised them in the right manner. Now, other indicators that they made them approach us was their customers, as well as themselves, were actually reporting very slow site speeds. And this was, of course, one major concern for us. As you'll be able to see down the bottom there, the load speeds, as an example, gives you just an idea of what type of problems there were. So the solution for us, what we want to do is, first of all, actually gain access to some of their analytics account and, of course, their search console. Now, the first thing that we actually looked at, and as you can see in this table here, is actually we gained access and searched as using the feature as fetch as Google. And the first thing that flagged up for us, and which we've highlighted in red here, was actually someone that actually manually entered additional pages within the index. The route, by the way, was absolutely fine. There was no problems at all with the site itself, but this was manually entered. And of course, first of all, that was a very, very clear indicator that something was very wrong with the site itself. Looking at some of the page examples that we had was actually one of these, and as you can see, this has got nothing at all related to any high-end gadgets or even high-end electrical goods. This is damn sunglasses, which has got nothing relevant to the client at all. We, of course, approached the customer on this point and actually found out that this was nothing to do with them or their staff, or nobody had in-house actually implemented any of these problems. So what we did is we dived even further into this, and we actually started noticing very quickly, of course, that redirects were also manually implemented. And what we did was we actually came back to the client itself and actually started to raise their concerns that the site had either been falsely information has been entered into their site, or someone who, of course, may be in-house with their team members or outside of the building who had access to the login details for their site and, of course, all important analytical data and so on. Well, the other side of things is it was actually potentially hacked. And, of course, reporting to the customer about these redirects that were in place, we even found one of these pages, which, as you can see, was actually on the left-hand side, was actually implemented a redirect, and the page was absolutely nothing, again, related to their content. So what we did was we spoke to the client in great detail, and what they did was they actually came up to the point where they said, look, there must have been something that's hacked into our account, and got their IT team involved. Now, one thing that we flagged, of course, up straight away was this potential problem, but actually Google, 16 days later, after we got involved, flagged up that there was a malware problem on their site. So it's worth making sure that you're keeping up to date with any sort of notifications, any messages, or any potential problems that are on your website. Because, of course, yes, it's great to have a team behind you that will actually cover you if there's any problems, but even Google, as you can see, takes some time to actually notify you if there's a major problem. Now, with a summary of these results that we found after our website had been hacked, there ended up actually being two types of websites. One that the visitors could see, which you can see on the left-hand side of this picture, which visually looked okay. There wasn't anything major problem with it at all, apart from, of course, slow loading speeds, which customers were complaining about. But on the right-hand side, what you could see is actually what, for example, a Google bot would actually see, and actually put the implementation into place itself. We actually found that there was a number of redirects that were already in place, and this actually, on top of that, caused the slow speeds for the website itself. So we actually covered quite a number of areas just from this one problem of actually having the website hacked and these 301 redirects in place. In addition to that, again, referring back to the picture there, we actually also found that they, with the site being hacked, we found around about 30 H1 headings as a file, as a size 0. And within the box on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see that from a visitor's point of view, there wasn't really anything that you could see from the front end of the site. But at the back end, you could actually see that the Google bot had reported there was a problem on there, and it could actually pick it up quite quickly. With that in mind, with us, of course, saying a customer that malicious workings has been working on the site itself, we actually asked them to cover security problems, and speaking to their IT teams to make sure that covering simple areas of security was actually put into place. They, of course, are doing this now and have done already in place. And as you saw from the original slides, that the traffic has actually now started to build back up again. Now we've resolved a lot of these problems for them. So it's one certainly for you to keep an eye on. And here are just some of the recommendations that we would suggest just to cover. Some would be very, very simple, and some that you have already implemented itself. But again, it's quite useful just to check over and just make sure that you're covering all security aspects. And first of all, is a very simple procedure is making sure that you've got a complicated password. I know it might sound daft, but unfortunately there's still sometimes that we gain access to people's websites, and when they pass the login details and their credentials to us, they're just not secure enough at all, and we, of course, report back those problems for them. Making sure that you've got any CMS pages and keeping them up to date regularly. You should be anyway in regards to, of course, maybe products or maybe blogs, for example, and so on. But if you're using a third-party API or a different program altogether, then making sure that they've actually got all the latest security updates. This is where either yourself or maybe your development team could actually come into hand, and making sure that your pages are going to be as secure as possible for them. A classic problem that we keep on coming up on a regular basis is actually the standard default admin login to websites. Now, this makes no difference if it's an e-commerce website or, of course, a normal WordPress website like this example that we've shown here. Making sure that you may have a unique or a different admin access panel would be absolutely superb. Below on here as well is continuing that, is making sure that you, of course, have got very secure admin access. Now, this isn't just focused just on the website, but you can actually take this also onto other areas of, say, your hosting platform. Say, for example, cPanel, making sure that the password is very different from that, from gaining access to actually your e-commerce site or WordPress website, as an example. And again, unique passwords, they have to be key from this point of view. Continuing with this, what we do is we also looked at trusted antivirus software. One thing that flagged up for ourselves having the conversation with them is looking at what workstations and what computers were gaining access to their e-commerce website. Now, this might sound daft, but of course there's some very, very good free software tools out there they're very well established already. But personally, if you're actually trying to gain sensitive information such as e-commerce backend websites, dashboards, or even down to your cPanel access, you want to make sure that personally a paid solution is actually in place. The reason being is because you get the latest virus definitions, you've got the latest firewall protection and so on. So personally, I would always advise for a paid solution than maybe a free antivirus product that's out there. Also making sure that you access, if you're accessing your websites via a mobile device, that's obviously happening on a regular basis these days. If you're using the browser, then especially on devices like Android, for example, making sure that you've got an antivirus program in place for that. Your passwords, it does actually concern me quite a bit where customers actually end up saving, or they reported to save a lot of their passwords within their browser. I'm not sure, of course, if you do that, but certainly I wouldn't do that in any single way, gaining access to any of the programs that we use. Now, what you can do is you can actually get these password and login detail generators, some being LastPass, which they offer a free solution as well as a paid solution. One that I use myself, which is 1Password on a Mac. I personally find it a superb product, and it generates all the login details I need. And of course, RoboForm, just to name a few. There's a lot of other products out there that's very useful and do the same job, but these are just here to name some of the most popular ones. Also, setting up alerts on your mobile. What we find out is it's very, very useful to actually have your hosting provider. In some cases, you can supply your phone number, and if there is a problem with some malicious behavior with login details, you can actually have this message sent to you via a text message to your phone. You don't necessarily have to go as deep and as high tech as that if you don't want to. The other simple way of doing is making sure that on your phone that you actually have a mailbox linked to your domain and the site, and making sure that if there's any issues with connecting your mailbox from your phone to your website and your domain, is of course it will come up saying that an issue with authentication or login details aren't correct. If you're trying to gain mail, of course, from your phone, that could be quite useful if the message is flagged up. You have a very clear indicator that something has changed, and certainly if you've not changed the passwords or login details, you know that there's something issue and it needs to be addressed very quickly. The other side is something, again, very, very simple, but we seem to come across quite often, is actually keeping a very good relationship with your developers and IT team. The reason is they actually have an idea of your login details. And of course, that could be a point of leaking of information if you end up not having a great relationship. Some other areas, just to finalize things, is to monitor on a regular basis for you, is looking at simple things as your outbound links. What you can do is there's actually a number of free tools and solutions that are out there. One, just to name one, basically, Screaming Frog is a very good tool where you can actually scan through the website and actually keep an eye out for any outbound links, and also just making sure that you're up to date with the site as well. Keeping a very, very strong eye on any redirects that have been implemented to your website. The reason is because, of course, if this redirecting to a wrong page or there's an error made, you'll be able to see this very, very quickly. Looking and gaining access to, of course, your search console. 404 errors are an absolute classic, and if you actually see a sharp rise of these errors, make sure you're talking to your development team as soon as possible. Again, you can do this at any point in any stage, and I would personally advise you to monitor this on a regular basis. Once a month, do like what we've just done. Maybe log into the search console and actually view Fetch as Google. And using these features, you'll be able to actually see a number of pages that have come up. But the main focus you want to be looking at is making sure that your home page, your category pages, subcategory pages, and also blog pages are actually being checked by using Fetch's Google feature. Monitoring page load speeds. There are a number of tools out there to do so if you want to. Even Google, for example, offers you a very good insight tool called PageSpeed Insights. Very useful tool that you can just log in and actually check for free. And also making sure that when you're logging into your accounts is see if you've got any notifications from Google themselves. Because yes, in this case, they're a lot slower. But if this customer hadn't come to us with their main concerns of their website, then they would have found it potentially 16 days or a month later. So keeping an eye on any notifications that Google actually does send you is going to be quite key on this point. I hope you've got some information there. This is my contact details if you'd like to call me or contact me directly if you've got any additional questions. And if we've got time for Q&A, that will be absolutely superb. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. We definitely have some time for questions from the audience. Let me have a quick look. Maybe we have something interesting, and meanwhile there's the question from me. If we try to look at this situation from the other side, what was there to gain by hacking some other company's website and try putting whatever kind of pages you want there?
Well, from this side, it actually affected their SEO. So, of course, we didn't know, and maybe their IT may have actually known who this was or what if it was hacked, who these people were. But this would have been a malicious point of view. So this would have actually affected their SEO. So, for example, of course, Google would have found out and crawled these other pages, noting that it wasn't relevant content in any way. And as we all know, that promoting websites or making sure that any redirects are on sites, if they're not relevant and they're not key to your site, then it's unfortunately going to be a negative impact on your website. And this is one reason why traffic started diving very, very quickly, because the site was crawled. This data was sending back to, of course, the servers, and also it just made a massive impact for them, really.
Okay, thank you. The question from the audience, you've clearly scared people up a bit.
It's not there to be scared, it's just it's some things that we come across on a regular basis.
Yeah, it happens, and that's the problem. So, which CMS would you recommend that cannot be so easily hacked?
Oh, there is so many out there, of course. I mean, WordPress is obviously a fantastic tool, as we all know. And personally, yes, you've got to use them. All I would actually ever say, to be honest, is just making sure that you have got, and this is speaking to your developers or yourselves, making sure that any patches are, of course, up to date, but making sure that you've got the most reliable version of this. As we all know, these software vendors actually do send out, of course, updates and patches. Not all of them are as secure as we'd like them to be, or more importantly, reliable. But making sure that you're speaking to the developers and also the people who've had experience of this, maybe even beta testing, for example, is very, very useful before you implement it on your own website. So, there isn't, for example, WordPress, as the example I used in our slides here, is a fantastic tool. But you have to make sure that it's patched and you've got the latest security updates. That's all. In my personal opinion, that's the approach that I would take. And one major reason what I'm flagged about security and actually antivirus of all things, when we actually are talking to some customers, when we're talking about them, are they using Windows, are they using Mac? When we find out that they're using a very poor antivirus and yet gaining, of course, access to their dashboard, their cPanel login and so on, it's a really major concern. Goodness me, if we're logging into anything in regards to our company here, of course, we have a paid solution, and it's got the latest virus definitions and so on. Safety is so much better because the problems that it can cause in the long term can really, really affect your business, and that is key.
Definitely. Another question, when you were telling about the means how you detect such problem with the hacked website, you've said that you can notice a number of pages appearing in the Google index, letters from Google and so on and so forth, but if those pages appeared on the website, they definitely drive some traffic. Is it possible to notice that there's some wrong with your website, like using Google Analytics tools or any other analytics tools, that some just wrong traffic to wrong pages comes to your website?
Yeah, I got that. Sorry, you broke up a little bit. But yeah, certainly. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there, of course, that can give you indicators that something is not particularly going well. In my personal opinion, using the feature, of course, within Google Search Console is the best, really, because it crawls through your site, and you can see, as we did, these manually entered pages. And it is a case of actually going through them. I know it sounds quite long-winded and a long time to take, but it's well worth your time, because we found these very quickly. The customer and their team didn't think about this. We actually spotted these errors quite promptly, and of course it cued us to actually look even deeper into the website. And through this, we suddenly found, yes, there were pages implemented manually. There were even 301 redirects that were put into manually. So personally, the tool that I would advise you to use is certainly going via the Search Console. But yes, you can obviously check when in analytics, and also other tools that are there which may flag up concerns. But the best route to take is go for the Search Console, in my opinion.
And the last question about the situation when you, for example, website is hacked, you see the problem that you lose your SEO rankings. What is your point on the future of such situation? Does Google tries to monitor such situations more heavily and try to exclude those sites from search results? What is going to happen? How serious the damage to your website can be?
Well, only obviously Google has the answers to this in the future. I wish I could hold those cards, because I'd be a very wealthy man, I'm sure, if I if I knew the answers of Google. No, it's just precautions that you have to put into place. I don't think Google will ever have the perfect situation and have it completely resolved for you, and tell you these instantly that there's problems on the website. Even with us, it was 16 days 16 days after we were supporting them and told them about these problems that Google referred this error. But no, all you have to do is just make sure you're being very precautious on the site itself that you've got. I don't think that Google will be able to filter everything for you, and of course it is going to make a huge impact onto your website, as mentioned many times already. It's huge. And again, it's something that we are seeing on a regular basis now. It does seem to be coming, and it's, again, this company was actually incredibly well established. This wasn't a business startup. It wasn't something that had been established for just a couple of years. These guys were very well established in the e-commerce and business, in the business world. So
Miles, the guys are telling me that we basically ran out of time. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very nice to meet you, and that was quite interesting info for our listeners.